So first of all, a very warm welcome to all of you. I think we had a fantastic start this morning with the keynote session. The speakers came in, lots and lots of insights. Of course, there are always these questions that keep coming and keep flowing, but I think, certainly great to have inputs from industry leaders, right, during this day. And I would certainly kind of, tell you that this particular session is going to be, all the more fascinating and interactive and insightful as well. My only request to all of you is that, as per our theme, we would want to have these particular sessions, more based on like a candid conversation. So please keep those questions coming in. If it gets a little bit more, our moderator will tell us that, hey, we'll take it offline. But keep it as much interactive as we can. We have our, esteemed panels over here. So what I would do is I'll give a quick gist of this particular panel discussion and then introduce our moderators. So the topic for today that we have over here is how to decide on what to build next. I mean, really, if you look at the product roadmaps that we have, right? There are multiple influencers that basically get into defining what really gets built next. It can be things like your typical day-to-day engineering related activities, looking at the backlogs and stuff like that. And by the way, while you're doing that, your business would come back and say that, oh, you know what, I want something like this to be delivered. Forget about your backlog. And while you're doing this, somebody else is in the market who does something totally different and really moves you out of this whole game. So you have to be really on the toes when you are trying to do or work on your product roadmaps and trying to build things. So how do you basically come to a point around how do I decide now what should be done next? Is basically a panel discussion. We have 5 panel members, including a moderator, and I'll just spend a minute on introducing a moderator. He loves finding new hacks for old problems and does so by partnering with MNCs, entrepreneurs in India and globally. Innovation, performance coaching, and social challenges are the other areas that he's passionate about. A co-founder at Business Sherpa, he works with entrepreneurs to take to the challenge and grow the profits 10x in 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Akshay Cherian, who's a moderator for this panel discussion. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody, and really a privilege to spend time listening to the panelists. We actually had a pre-call. It's my job to introduce them, but it's very hard given how eclectic the mix is and how crazy their journey has been. I will attempt to summarize in very often 20 years in a few sentences. It's unfair, but I'll try. So I want to welcome Mr. Dinkar Charak straight onto the stage. He is the principal product manager for ThoughtWorks India. He's done a whole bunch of things. I don't even know how they fit in one place. So there's a startup for kids. He's done products online in the advertising space. He's done software diagnostics, OS kernels. And if that's not enough, he's worked and contributed towards the Large Hadron Collider in CERN. So I don't know what happens in CERN, but I think epic things happen there. I think Iron Man was born there, right? I have no idea. So Dinkar, just fantastic to have you here. Welcome, and look forward to the questions that are going to come. Would like to welcome Mr. Tarun Krishnamurthy. And again, just very, very eclectic. He's the co-founder at Gravitas. He mentors and develops early stage startups, and new centers in India. Was with McAfee. And over there, he headed engineering for new products on a very, very wide range of topics that is, the words itself I've not even heard of. Take a shot at this. Telemetry analytics, whatever that means, right? I think it's what Spider-Man plans to do next, right? And he headed the program management in India for the operations as well. He's done a whole bunch of things around the product ecosystem. He's got 20 years of experience and a computer science background. So Tarun, I know I didn't do justice, but welcome, right?
Thank you.
Yes. So I'd like to welcome Himanshu Arora. And Himanshu is really your guy. If you're an entrepreneur that wants to take your business to market, he's done a lot of end-to-end marketing, digital marketing work. The who's who he has done sessions for. he has done campaigns with. And you're talking to somebody who's right at the top of his game when Google picks them for the Launchpad program. So Himanshu, just look forward to your irreverence and your fun. And I looked up your website as well. Social Panga is the company he's co-founded. So hopefully there will be no fist fighting, but welcome, right? So I want to welcome Gautam, and I'm going to say the second name. I'm not sure if I get that right. Kotam Raju, is that right? Okay. So Gautam is actually, so I think all our panelists are outdoing each other. So he's got a fashion background. Now he's getting into demand sensing. There's something around predictive analytics. There's something around new initiatives. He's doing all of this with Myntra. And you'll really have to pull this out of them, because when we started our call, I suddenly realized it was 27 minutes and we had 3 more minutes left, and there were still like so many questions to explore. So there's a wide range, startup experience, MNC experience, products, cannibalizing your own products. I mean, there's a range of topics that have come up. So what I'll do is I'll just sort of kick it off with a few conversations over there, and then we'll take it with the group. There's also a prize for the best question, right? But I think the prize would be just listening to them, right? So, but please jump in, dive in. You want to treat this as almost having chai with people that you normally won't get to have chai with, okay? All right, so I'll just get myself on stage as well. So I've just got a few questions. These are just discussions that came out of, our call. So I think I'm just going to start with a question around cannibalizing your own products. I don't know, maybe it's my preference for that. Maybe just to put some meat on that question, which is both dilemmas, struggles, experiences. How does that even work? If you've maybe even just run us through an example, that would be fantastic. So I'll just start right there.
So I'll try to keep it very quick, but 2 things that I always remind myself. One is Nokia. We all remember Nokia, right? They were at the top of their game. They had 100% coverage. When iPhone came up, I was talking to one of the, at that time I was in advertising, I was talking to one of the advertising folks in Nokia, and he was saying, he saw the iPhone in my hand. He said, this is an idiot phone. I said, it's so expensive, yeah. You can't even do an SMS forward in that. I say, yeah, that's a problem, but that's a software problem. Then new release, and no, in India it won't do anything, because people are always forwarding SMS. You can't do SMS forward, what will you? So there are apps. Our engineers are brilliant. They can make apps. So I always remind myself of this conversation. What to build next. When you are in a leadership position, when you are in a comfort zone, if someone within your family is not reminding you that this is transient, you're going to be in that situation. That's one. That's kind of negative, sad kind of story. The other side is that we worked at a physics research lab called Fermilab. They were the biggest accelerator, and they had detected 2 subatomic particles. They were ahead of the game. And what they decided was, we can't be in this leadership position forever. We have to do really big. They went to the US government. There was cash crunch. And then what they decided to do, they decided to collaborate and do something bigger than themselves. All of the world got involved in it. A lot of Indian universities are involved in it, and CERN came around. So when you are in leadership position, either you cannibalize yourself or someone will come and kill you, and that's my experience.
Got it. Any thoughts about the dilemmas of this? I know you're making some big changes in demand sensing from what I've read, or just any other examples of that. I don't think it's so clear-cut, right? In hindsight, we can all say Nokia made a bad decision, or string of decisions. But what does it look like to be in it, right? So
in hindsight, it's very easy to dissect and say this was wrong, that is right? FB's campaign on free basics, whichever side of the fence you are, right now it's very easy to say, okay, that campaign is to blame, correct? But I think I completely concur with Dinkar on the fact that either you build the next level of products that actually cannibalize your current offering, because everybody else is anyways going towards that. And the faster you do that, the farther you move the cheese, basically. Right. And to do that, you need to invest. It's a mindset thing, which basically brings about, I think, a whole set of other changes in the organization itself. Right. So I mean, right from the kind of investments you make in people, the kind of investments you make in making the space where somebody who's just done an innovation, built a super product, needs to be congratulated, needs to be facilitated. At the same time, he needs to have there needs to be that culture in the organization where that can be challenged, and he needs to accept that challenge, and also because he's the best mind also somewhere to accept what he couldn't do, which usually is seen in form at the customer end as flaws, right? If an iPhone 4, she. Okay, I'm socially inclusive, right? But right?
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's like the iPhone 4, right? They didn't stop the product from going to the market. It was a very basic thing to have, to not be able to forward the message, which was something that basic phones could do, correct? But we've never really gone into the history of why iPhone 4 came out without that feature, right? Maybe there might be merit in actually, I don't have any data on it, but there might be merit in actually looking at that. Right? Okay. Were they looking to show continuous upgrades, or was there a real need for us, for what we're doing, right? I come from a fairly offline domain, if there was one, correct? Switch to this side. I could see technology and product tools, and my respect for this grew. I was also being coached to go to, let's say, an engineer, beta engineer banega, right? I beta turned into a tailor. Okay, so correct, but it's been, my mother has she's proved right when I've come back the long way back to technology in some form or the other.
Got it.
Right, but to me, the whole scale, right, and in a world that is getting increasingly connected, globally or locally or whichever other way you want to look at it, I think scale, whichever definition of scale applies there, but scale, and for scale you need certain products, and that's what got us thinking, right? So we had to ask questions where we ended up questioning literally our own products at Myntra.
Right.
They were not good enough for us to scale. Right, and when we started on this journey, right, that's how, I'm more on this later.
Right, sure. No.
That's the whole point. You have to cannibalize your own products and be able to think that yes, you will have to bring out an improvement.
Tarun, I just want to throw a little wrinkle in, because I know you've got a corporate background. It's easy, my experience has been that it's easier when you have an entrepreneur on fire and he sees, okay, we can cannibalize, and basically mandates it, to hell with everybody, puts the pirate flag up and goes. Right? But in the corporate environment, a lot of product managers, my experience has been, they see it, they know it's coming, but they don't have the political influence. Right? Any thoughts on that? What was it like in McAfee? We went through massive changes, I'm sure.
Yes, and particularly in the last couple of years. But if you also kind of quick background, McAfee, we were mostly grown by acquisitions and mergers. So there is that little bit of entrepreneurial spirit within the company. Having said that, working out of Bangalore, we had different kinds of challenges in terms of both processes, working with multiple kinds of teams, multiple cultures across the company. For a company size of only about 3,000 engineers, McAfee, as big the brand name might be, we had about 30 engineering centers. So we had both the benefit and the deficit of dealing with so many people. But in Bangalore, we had that cohesiveness that we could build. And I was one of the founding members of the India Center, and there was conscious effort to build a culture of flexible thinking, openness, and looking at allowing people to experiment. So these are some of the things that they already mentioned, right? So it is also, these are buzzwords and easier said than done. It's easy to say flexible thinking and open and transparency. But what can you do from setting that stage, letting people within your own team? So let us stop talking about big corporations, etc. As leaders, many of you are 10 plus years, etc. So you are already leaders, and not just because of years of experience, but many of you are founders as well. So you are already thinking like leaders. One of the things I would like to make people think about is that you start allowing people to experiment. And experiment, maybe in walled gardens, whatever your comfort is. But let there be some thought process and openness about, this is working, this is not working. And I did that a few times at McAfee, and we can go into some details if you're
Got
interested.
it,
Yeah.
got it. Actually, that's an interesting thing. I just want to get a check from the audience. What kind of a demography do we have? How many of us are in startups, pre-revenue, somewhere in startups, somewhere in that category? Just kind of you stick your hand up. Okay. How many of us are in product roles in corporates of any kind, shape, size? Okay. All right. How many of y'all are not in product roles but are looking at that as a space to enter into? Okay, good. This just gives me a, how to take that. So definitely that we should come back to that piece. But what I'm hearing you say is almost give people a sandbox, right? Don't have, if the mandate isn't there, at least under your leadership, give them a sandbox, right? And I know you're
Foster that culture.
right, and I'm sure there's a lot of tactical experiences around
Yes.
trying to do that. Got it. Himanshu, any thing from the startup world? How do you see this?
So to take this forward, what Tarun mentioned is in terms of experiment, right? So one of the very important point is whenever you're developing a product, one thing which as a product owner comes is your ego, right? So I've gone so far. I've done a pivot. It's been into the market, right? But now I cannot step back. Okay, I cannot go wrong. I cannot go wrong in my thought process. There's a lot of corporate pressure to it. So I always pilot Google as a very good example to it, right? Google always makes so many products and they accept the request and roll back. I'll give you a small example, Orkut one good example, Google Plus, okay? They went ahead categorically for a few years, right? They understood that this as a product is not being accepted by the market the way they want to position it, right? And they're rolling it back. Okay, well, that's one option, right? Second option is that you keep on pushing. What happens is that once you keep on pushing a product as per se, the bigger brand of your organization takes a beating. Right? I'll take an example of Myntra. So I was speaking to somebody at Myntra and Flipkart, and last year I spoke at one other conference when Myntra was about to launch that mobile thing, which like everything is here, right? So I had a very, very candid conversation within an organization. It's a kind of an insight that they mentioned that within an organization they are experimenting this bit. I'm sure that from an out front, it was showcased that we are confident that this is the right step and all, but within the organization, they were jittery. And the best part is that they knew that if it's not going to work out, they can roll it back. And they did with the Flipkart very categorically, right? So rather than sticking to one specific thought process, it's very, very important to be flexible. That is A. B, which as an Indian we generally don't do, is we don't accept our mistakes. Okay, so if you want to be the product manager, it is highly, highly important for me personally to accept the mistakes, right? So when we are rolling out a campaign in marketing or we're doing a startup, like last 2 months, I've spoken to about 3 to 4 co-founders who have pivoted for about 2 years and they rolled it back. They're like, we accepted this thing that is not working, or let's move to something else. Versus a 10 years back when people was not taken in a very right spirit, right? And same applies for product also. And for that case, the cannibalization is a very, very important. Till the time you kill something, the next thing will not come, right? That's a simple fundamental. So to have a Narendra Modi, you need to kill a Congress to BJP to come up, right? Same fundamental applies.
Kill.
One analogy you can probably relate to is if you see the plantain or the banana stems, right? Until you kill it, the new ones don't come up.
Got
Maybe
it.
one way to remember it.
Yeah, Venkat, yeah, please.
So one thing, though the folks from startups are a little less in the number, but there is so much of talk about putting your ego away and being cognizant of the mistakes that you made. I think at least in the startup world, I have personally seen face saving and all these things non-existent to a very large extent. Probably that's why Indian startups. And I am assuming that that is still a little bit of problem in corporate India. Assuming I may be wrong. But there's one thing that I wanted to talk to startups about, and maybe it will help folks who want to get into that, is that there's a total a very big lack of structured thinking around product when it comes to startups. The founder has a vision, the founder is the default product manager, the founder is doing a lot of things and is taking the product forward, but there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of existing strategies that a startup can benefit from if they introduce a little bit of management in their product thought. just
Right,
wanted
right.
to highlight.
I think I want to take that tangent and sort of push that further, which is this whole idea of, it seems almost like a dichotomy, right? The process and the management and the gut feel and the intuition. What are some things that work for you? How do you both manage that? I mean, in the early days, it's very easy for the entrepreneur to basically say, I think so, I'll steamroll everybody, and I've seen that happen a lot. I have a portfolio of startups, right? But how do you do that when it becomes more mature, right? And there is the role of intuition, but how does that balance? How do you explain your gut feeling? Yeah,
I'll add one more.
Sure, please.
There's a difference between being a product manager and doing product management, and that kind of makes it a 4x4 grid. Before maybe others would want.
No, go ahead. Expand that. Just expand that. Yeah.
So someone who does product management will have probably Jira tool or all those whatever third-rated tools product managers have to live with. I mean, we are as a community very accepting. Every community says no, I want better tools. Everyone is getting better tools. Product managers are living in Excel sheet world, and I don't know why we accept it. Maybe some entrepreneurs among us should really start doing it. So, that being said,
Right, nice little rant. We were all being a little too polite. Thanks for sort of kicking that in. Yeah.
So people who are there are a lot of product managers whom I meet who want to come into startup world, who want to do services. Services, again, kind of becomes a little bit that, and they're still like, okay, I will do prioritization of the features, then I'll do this, then we'll hold regular conference, then we'll have escalations and all. They're so involved in the process that they've forgotten that they are the product managers. They have to step back. They have to own the product. They have to look at the market. They have to look at the brand. They have to look at the marketing message. Unless someone creates a process around that, their brains won't go in that direction. So it's a very good tool, but if you get too involved in that tool, you're setting yourself to be, sorry to make Nokia the bad, you're setting yourself to be the next Nokia's product manager.
Got it. Other examples, thoughts?
No, I think to summarize, I think we should look at outcome driven. Be outcome driven. So people are not buying your products and services just because they're products and services. They're trying to solve something for themselves. It's going to make their life better or their experiences better. So focus on the outcome driven. All these tools, etc., are enablers, and all the people in your organization also enablers. So create that thought process where everybody is focusing on what's the outcome we're going to provide.
Got it. No. Sure. Yeah.
So categorically the question is, or discussion is that a gut or intuition versus the process, if I put it across, right? So I always say this, that there is way as a co-founder or as a product owner, okay, there is always an intuition which drives it. And I give an example of Mr. MS Dhoni, right? As a cricketer, right? There's a lot of process which need to be followed, that you need to start bowling with a pace bowler, and he comes with an Ashwin and he takes it 2 wickets and get it away, right? Same thing applies here too. So whenever we have an intuition about a specific problem solving product, I always say that go ahead with this, okay, and do a pivot. Okay, and this pivot as a term, I've been using it for last 6-7 months or year, which was non-existent specifically in Indian market, right? People were not understood what pivot is, right? You start with your intuition, you see how people respond to that product, right? I'm not asking you a full-fledged product in the market with an amazingly good UI, with an amazingly good back technology. Let the product have some flaws. Let the product, have some technological issues. That's perfectly fine. But at least go with an intuition and figure it out whether people accept this or not. Once that thing is done, once you are into the business for about few months of a year, you know that this product has an acceptance in the market. Then you can apply all the process in the world in terms of product management and roll it out. I'll give you a very small example. Okay, there's an organization in the medical space. Okay, and the fundamental is very simple. It started about a couple of years back. You have a prescription there, right, given by the doctor. You take a photo of the prescription, upload in the app, and the medicine get delivered at your home. Simple fundamental, started with a single app. The app used to die immediately after a couple of transactions, whatever it is. But they got an amazingly good transaction in Mumbai as a market, and they're rolling it across to India. I don't want to disclose a name, but the fundamental here is that it went with an intuition that people need these services.
Right.
Okay, people need this help. Okay, and it was non-existent. Service was non-existent about a couple of years back. Same applies. Snapdeal started with something, Flipkart started with something. They understood there's a requirement of this bit, and then you pick it up. One more last thing. That's one way of looking at it. Second is that there is players in the market, but you make an amazingly good product and kill the existing player. Ola did with TFS. Ola did with Meru. Correct. So when Ola came into the market, Taxi for Share was there before that. Meru was there before that. There's so many other players in the market. But they made an amazingly good product in terms of executing it. And we know, need not to be said, what is Ola, what TFS right now. So they're both the ways which we can look at it.
Right.
It depends upon the co-founders or product owner how you want to pick it up.
Great point actually, because just to come back, what I heard was the hunch, right? Is it a hunch or an intuition or a process? I think it's a bit of both, correct? That's exactly what you were also saying, right? It starts with a hunch, right? It has to start with a hunch because there is no streams of data available and you're just sitting and looking at, okay, I see an opportunity there. Well, that could be a point to start off, but then you will only be starting off on improving something already existing. Right? I know we moved on from the whole cannibalization topic, but really, right, the hunch, but it's without data, without the first team on also how do how does a CEO or who's also the main product manager, the first product manager, correct? How does he enroll others? How does he communicate what the larger vision that he's seeing? Correct? It's the first crack team that he brings in, because that crack team, whether it's product managers, it's not just product managers. To me, it's an eclectic team of people who are on the consumer, like people who think from the output backwards thing, people who would know, okay, fine, you're talking about the end game, right? But listen, we need to make it here. We need to start here, right? We need those people also in the team. So the question of how to build a great product really is, only when you answer all the who, the how, the when, the what, and there has to be a champion of all these questions, right? And rightfully so. They're obviously having a demonstrated ability to own that question asking chair or whatever, right? It helps somewhere or the other, right? For you to be able to either go to market quickly if that's important, or to phase your go to market plan in sync with whatever the market economy, or because sometimes there have been cases when some products could have come out which were probably too far, too soon, too early for their time. They had flaws that people refused to overlook. Right, I'm sure somebody or the other could come up with examples of those. Right, there are times when I'm just talking about. From a non-tech perspective, there was a car called Ford Fusion that came out, brilliant car, everything right, priced right also, right. Strangely, SUV like ground clearance, everything, and it flopped because the perception that got built was it was too fast, too soon, and everything. But now you have a whole host of cars which are hatchbacks really, but masquerading as SUVs or pseudo SUVs, right? Sorry for a kind of parallel worlds analogy or metaphor, but right, hunch, data, team to me are the biggest, right? Because the team is the one that really allows, the crack team really goes on and hires more minds. Like how Amrish was saying, right? We always look to hire people smarter than us, correct? So only people who can come up with and say something which completely astounds us, right? They're the best people to be brought on board, and it's great to have people who understand this in the crack team. Right. So diverse opinions, all sorts of positions, demonstrated ability to own that question asking ability. Seat, and the team's ability to actually hire further.
Fantastic. Got it. Yeah, sure.
Sometimes hunch is kind of overrated. So if you look at the funnel, what's coming into, there is like someone experiences a personal pain. That's a trigger for a startup or any new product. Someone has a hunch that something in future may be needed. Someone sees some data. Someone talks to some analyst and comes in. but they all kind of come back into this churn where you are experimenting, you're pivoting, you're
Right.
So hunch may be there, it may be some data or something, but they all have to go through this pivots and churn. So you may start with a hunch, nothing wrong there, as long as you're going through that, right? You're going through that churn, that part is there. And now you said there are some examples of startups that were ahead of the time, probably mine is one of them. That's what I think. That's what I tell you myself.
Wear it like a badge of honor, right? So maybe we'll take Tarun comments from you, and then we'll just throw it to the audience because I think we kind of set it up. So no, just go ahead if you have.
I think it's better they
Okay.
get a chance.
Himanshu, you want to put some?
So there's one thing which you mentioned ahead of time, right? There's a company, I don't want to take the name, which was into mobile wallet, and I spoke to them in 2010. I'm like, this guy is mad. Who will use mobile to make a transaction? Okay, when Paytm was not there, right? It was just a recharge one. And the biggest thing which recently a lot of companies are doing is that without your internet, through a ringtone, you can transfer transactions. A transaction can happen. It got recently picked up. I spoke to that guy in 2010. I still remember the meeting which we had at Indranagar. And I'm studying in 2015. He somehow stick to the same idea for 6 long years. Okay, so he come from the Silicon Valley background, and also he knew that this is going to happen eventually. And right now, all the good things are happening to him in terms of funding, in terms of back with the bigger financial groups, blah, 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 blah. He is in the newspaper day in, day out. So when I met him last week, I believe, over a drink, he's like, Manshu, I told you, right, 6 years back. So first, in terms of ahead of your time, it does matter. If you're ahead of your time, you have to stick to the idea. You need to have that conviction ki, hey boss, I'm going to sail through it, and then there's no limit out there.
Yeah, I guess, entrepreneurship is filled with fairy tales. The disasters never get told, right? So I've got a father who's a serial entrepreneur. So I've front end seen the train wrecks, right? And as a family member, so I guess the story is great when it works out, right? I think for every one guy like that, there are probably 30 who were too perseverant. And in hindsight, you could say they were stubborn, right? So it's a fine line, but that's a great story, right? It's that whole pivot or persevere kind of question that is forever going to be there. Right. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of move it to the audience. Just questions around what to build next. Either dilemmas, things you're struggling with. Sure, please. Can we get the mic? Yeah.
Have you faced is it working? Okay. Have you faced a situation where there is a filing an IP, means patent, versus implementing it? So, IP filing does take time, and if you have implemented, you can't file an IP since something is already there. In such dilemma, what do you give a priority? Since grabbing market is also there and patenting. So,
got it.
So I don't know how many companies generally have how much they encourage and foster the culture of patenting. That is one big challenge I feel in India. It's only catching on right now. But having said that, I think having a patent is one thing, but bringing it to light and making a difference to someone with that patent, the implementation, I think, is more important than the patent. I mean, just to put it in one line. Anybody else have a comment?
Patents are overrated, especially in current scenario. So it's a simple rule of thumb. If just having the patent is of service enough, is of financial value enough, is of lawyer fee worth enough, because patent is of no use. You may have the patent, someone has copied that patent and they're using it, unless your lawyers can go after them and win that case, nothing is happening. So we had an opportunity in my startup, and at ThoughtWorks also we have these kind of discussions, and the rule of thumb has been, if you can make money out of that patent, that can pay for army of lawyers and still have money to have a good life, go for the patent part.
Elegantly answered. Great.
thank you.
So a few gentlemen here as well. Huh? Okay, got 10 more minutes.
Hi, my name is Vignesh. I'm from financial services firm. Often we come up with a new product to delight our customers, but our banking customers are very risk averse. What we built 3 years ago, they're still transitioning, and we have built 3 more versions later. How do you deal with such a situation? Any thoughts?
Great question.
It's a very straightforward answer to it. It needs to be more intuitive, right? While your advancement in product or technology that you're using Moore's law or Moore's daddy's law or whatever, right? The point is, I mean, seriously, that now they're saying it doesn't take 2 years for computing speeds to double, right? Or whatever, right? 5 times or whatever. Right now it's actually way less, right? So it needs to be the end product, output driven, has to be simplified and easier to use, right? iPhone versus Nokia, all over again. I gave my mother a BlackBerry, she hated it. Computer de diya mere ko, right? She hated it. I gave her an iPhone, right? And not an iPhone, I'm so sorry. I moved on to an iPhone, and I was buying her a Samsung or something which had just come out at that point of time with something, and she saw it and she loved it because to us it was the next level of technology, but to her, right, it was more intuitive. So even your banking customers, I'm a banking customer, right? I'm sure all of us are at some level, right? We use apps. There are certain apps which work, we can rate apps, or there are certain products that certain banks come out with, right? Tech or non-tech, they appeal to us. What has gone behind is not of our concern, right? It's output-driven thinking. I would continue to, I think, it needs to get simplified and more intuitive.
Right.
Thank you.
Just a clarification. Did you mean your customers are banks, or did you mean that banks?
Yes,
Customers
I meant customers are banks actually. So they are
you have
very
decided to be in a domain that is the nature
Move
of
slowly, yeah.
So
Right.
it was.
How do you make change there?
You can't change them. You can't change the regulations. You have chosen this domain. Live with it.
Yeah. So I think, this reminds me.
No, but having
Please.
said that, right, the bank, see, there is also the concept of.
I didn't mean to be rude on this.
Yeah.
No. So it's good to be ahead of the game, but it's also good to paint the big picture for these people. What is the possibility? What is the benefit? Are you articulating it in the right way? Are you, especially if you're doing it in India, you have to connect with them emotionally, whatever that means. The marketing guys probably know it better. But you have to paint that big picture to these people. What their future could be, their life could be. If you see, all our advertisements are connected that way, right? But having said that, there is also the aspect of reverse innovation. And I think this morning they touched upon it a little. They didn't call it reverse innovation, but if you see, a lot of opportunities are happening in India. A few years ago, we never thought of ourselves as customers. We were always building something for somebody else somewhere. And we said we are always away from the customer. We don't know what we are building. Somebody asked us to build something, we are building it. But today we are our own customers. We have got customers in our neighborhood. We are seeing problems, read them as opportunities, and you can go after them. So be it banking or anything, now to kind of generalize, I think there is a concept of reverse innovation, and that reverse innovation also means that you can take this same thing back to the developed ecosystems, be it US, elsewhere, because there are market segments in the US who are probably not being addressed because they have been built for higher end markets, higher net worth individuals, etc. Coming back to your banking, there probably is that micro lending, right? Those kinds of things are reverse innovation. What has been done here is now going back to the US.
Yeah.
So that could be a different kind of experience. You're probably addressing a different segment or maybe a different frame of reference.
So if I were to kind of add to that, I think the insight there is find a fringe, right? If it's about adoption, every sector moves. If you can find the fringe, it could be a location fringe, it could be a set of early adopters. Then again, it's a hard bargain because you're in a space that moves slowly. Please.
Hi, I'm not from a software background. I'm from a hardware background. I've built enough products between the two large companies I worked for and the two startups. But one of the things I always struggled with is the aftermath, right? The aftermath of killing a product initiative, right? Ultimately, all products are at some point a hunch, later a hypothesis that you're testing, you're pivoting, you're trying to develop it, right? But at some point, when it becomes clear that this is not going to go forward, you have a team that you have really kind of revved up, right? And you have to deal with that aftermath to make them move on to something else.
Right.
And this, I still after products in 4 different domains, this is something that I still struggle with. How do you then lift that team up and take them on to something else? Even worse, in a larger setting, or actually even in smaller settings, there's this stigma of failure that the other teams are going to be looking at them with. How do you deal with this?
Just in my past experience, I've had this situation twice and I've seen ThoughtWorks is a very interesting organization, and the culture of the organization is very open. And whenever there are these kind of situations where, let's say, something didn't pan out, there is a very open retrospective. There's a question about what went wrong, and that clarity of what went wrong is very important. It wasn't me. It wasn't I didn't do this. Those things are not open-ended. Those guilts are not there, because it was very clear after the discussion that these 3 things or 4 things went wrong. And that helps people to convert this loss into a process where next time I'll fix these 4 things, and then I'll be able to perform better. So that kind of takes stigma. There's one more thing that I've seen starting to happen in in India is so when I wound up my startup, the way I started it was by first finding jobs for everyone in the team. So there was a joke going around that you should work for him. If he fires you basically by finding a better job for you, right? Finding that continuity in a bigger organization, you could move them to another project, you could highlight their things. So one, the continuity is very important, and second, identifying what went wrong so everyone knows clearly what went wrong and there are no implicit undercurrents, and they can improve building upon that. That's my personal experience.
Quickly going back to the experimentation, right? When you experiment, you have to kind of bring everybody on the same page and say this is an experiment. So you have kind of set them up as this could be high gains, high returns, or this may fail totally. But going back to old adages where you're saying 100 times you tried and failed, did you fail or you found 100 ways that it didn't work, right? Going back to that. But the important thing is that open transparency. So when I built this telemetry, the big data analytics, all the good words that you're talking about there, right? I don't know what to say, but primarily the idea was to make the company proactive from being reactive. Product management is looking at data, engineering is looking at data, marketing and white papers are generated from data, and not data from talking to customers, but from crowdsourced information from our customer base. What do you do with that kind of amount of data, and are you able to articulate that in a successful manner is a big challenge, because I can pull all the data, right? But maybe I will get better at showing the data in nice ways, and I'll allow product manager to customize the dashboard one way and somebody else to look at the data in a different way. I'll do all that, right? Provide you that quote unquote services just to make my product or the team successful. But the important thing is how do you make sure that those people adopt it, right? And that it comes down to morning they were talking about entrepreneurial journey. In a way, this was the entrepreneurial journey for me, for us, for my team. We started with 3 college interns, and we became training grounds for interns. This is like a college project, but it's more than a college project with a outcome. And then we put all these people in front, taking them all the way from engineering, learning the tools, experimenting with different ways of doing things, all the way putting them in front of our internal customers like product manager. You go and work with this customer and see how they can benefit from all the data we brought from 4 million machines, 800 customers and all that, right? So and you have to also do the PR around it, win awards in the company. So the team is seeing that you have put in all your efforts. And the teams also come in and put in all their efforts. But when it fails, they know they have failed for some reasons which are apparent, or maybe not so, but that is the turnaround and learning that you have to do.
Last one, please. Very simple answer as we were discussing. Take them for a drink and get smashed.
And say it was always an experiment.
Honest.
You position it accordingly.
Correct. On a very serious note, last point before we end this, they're coming a time out thing. We were discussing in the morning. In India, categorically, we have been always been taught that if you fail, right, you are a bad guy. Right, you are doing something wrong. Okay, you're told that you don't fail in your school, colleges, you have to go to IIT, IIM, blah 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 blah. There, the concept of emotional quotient comes very, very highly of high importance. So one thing is in terms of what are the reasons which he rightly mentioned that we succeeded doing A, B, C, and this is 3-4 mistakes which we did. But the bigger thing is that if your team is emotionally connected with you, okay, you can have that heart-to-heart talk. You can succeed in any possible way. It may sound more psychology, but I have seen this myself a lot of times, very, very categorically. So in terms of sticking and having a confidence that this guy is, what he's doing is correct, I'm going to go to the next level itself. That's it.
Like him, get them better jobs.
Yeah, that's actually pretty rare. Huh? I should say that.
Hey, no, yeah,
When a train wreck happens, people just wanna the most powerful people leave first. Fantastic.
Yeah, when some of these products they lose funding, right? I have also tried this several times. Try and sell the product or the team to somebody else.
Nice.
Within the company, right? It's okay. Yes, I built it. I am my blood and sweat, etc. All that is there. But at the end of the day, the team and the product, if they succeed, it doesn't matter if people don't remember me. So that kind of trust, I think, comes back to what was being said, that there is a trust that you have to build. I have one other point, but that's
Okay.
a slightly different one. Future versus current.
Future versus current. I don't know if we can open out a conversation. Mandar, are we on time? We're out? Okay, so I report to my bosses and they tell me that. No, just joking.
But I think you probably should comment a little bit on that future versus current, because I think many people are.
I think even in that, somebody asked, how do you look at
Yeah.
stay relevant to today, but
So, I mean, there are lots of. No, please go ahead. Tarun, I can't keep the time, right?
why doesn't Tarun
Couple of minutes, okay? Tarun, go for it.
So there is something about forecasting, right? The gut feel, etc. There is something about forecasting, looking for inflections in the industry, in your company, and taking your product to market, right? Vijay Anand was mentioning this morning, look at your company's ecosystem or the flagship product, the ones that are successful. See if you can ride on their coattails. And you don't have to completely do this yourself and suddenly have a big bang new product, but see if you can just attach with somebody else.
The adjacency.
The adjacency. Try to find some commonality in what you are trying to do with something that is already successful. Write that for a while, and then afterwards you can probably launch yourself from there. So there is a little bit of predicting the future, super forecasting, as people are talking about. You can forecast all that, but at the same time work backwards to how you can ride the current wave. And there's also the other aspect of theme-based, right? Theme-based releases. So don't try to do everything in every release, because going back to the topic, what to build next. Go for maybe incremental releases, theme-based releases, be it customer advocacy, or I'm going to fix something, or I'm going to address this new segment, or experiment something else. Let there be, don't confuse the matter, because I think sales and marketing will also get confused, especially in a larger corporation, because they're all very quota-driven and they don't care what your product really does. I'm sorry to say that, but yeah.
All right. So I think what to build next is a question we'll continue to keep. There are a lot of opposable things, right? There's the gut and there's the process. There's the product. There's the marketing and the sales, right? And I think the sweet spot is in the center, right? And the sweet spot is messy, right? So just want to thank the panelists. And I would also, I'm told that I should give out an award for the best question. We didn't have as many as I'd like, but I'd like to give it to the question around how to deal with the train wreck. I don't think those were the exact words you used, but so just wanted to thank you, and I don't know how we do the thank you. Okay, we give a, okay, all right. Oh, do I do that? Okay, all right.
That's a good one. GUI center.
All right, please don't follow. Yeah.
Please don't follow.
You're right.
We don't want that.
Yeah, as a reward. All right, thank you. Did you get a?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, the to the entire panelists. I think one quick thing for our attendees over here, in the idea pad, there is the feedback form. We may we request you that you kind of please be candid, send in a feedback or drop it in and drop it into the Dropbox over there, before you head out to the next session. And couple of minutes more, I would request all of you, as a token of appreciation from all of us, Akshay, we would like to have a gift handed over to all our esteemed panelists from the group. May I have a round of applause, please? I think this was a wonderful session. Again, like Akshay said, it goes on, it goes on, it goes on. And like everybody knows, there is nothing right or wrong. I guess it's how you approach a situation. Thank you. And how can we forget our moderator, our dear moderator? So Ajit, may I request a token for Akshay as well? Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone. I'm hoping that you are loving these sessions. Our next session will start soon, so keep watching the kind of the next session that would come up over here. Have a great day ahead.